Alright, so I wanted to revisit something that I did a while ago. I did a video on installing a distributor gear on an MSD Pro BIllet distributor, because a lot of times you'll find the part number 8456, and that's actually for a Mustang, which means that it's going to come equipped with a steel gear for a roller cam. So if you're doing a truck engine and keeping it a flat tappet cam, it has to have a composite or iron, because most of the time flat tappet cam is also going to be ductile iron, and you need those gears to basically be matching. Like a bronze gear would work on anything because it's so soft, but those are also the most temperamental. But let me show you a couple things. Whether you watched that video or not, I'll just go over what it was. So I have, pardon the mess. I started assembling my short block, but I haven't really been documenting it for video. I'm just trying to get it done. So I have the cam in, the crank, and I'm starting to set up the pistons and finding out which ones are set up for which bank. So, alright, so when I originally put this new gear on, I was actually able to use my 12-ton press, basically line the holes up to the point where there was maybe a little sliver of metal, so I just bored it out a little with an 1/8 inch. The thing to keep in mind with these is the gear is not dependent on the roll pin. That's just added security, kind of like chains behind a hitch, because it is a press fit. The other interesting thing is if you're running a 302 and you're doing flat tappet, is the MSD distributors actually use the 351 Windsor shaft size, which is a 531 thousandths inner diameter on the gear, but luckily 302 and 351, they use identical gears of outer diameter. It's the same thing. They're just bored out more. So I got that on, but then I started reading things about, like what the actual height is supposed to be, because MSD has their spec, right? And it's 3.996 thousandths to 4 and 5 thousandths. And I assumed, I'm on the regular hole, I should be good to go. But actually, when I put it in the block, I realized this was still floating against the block support, right? And this is actually a thrust surface, and that's with the end plate pulled out. So that's the other thing to keep in mind is MSD has you take your measurement with this pushed in. You see that end plate, it's about 23 thousandths. So I had to move it down. Luckily my press was able to push this just about 10 thousandths. I bored out the hole a little bit more, and that's a really, really good fit. So I didn't have to make a whole new hole to potentially weaken the shaft a little. So now it's actually within the MSD spec. But here's the problem. With Ford, what they call for is they measure it with the end plate out. Obviously, different distributors are going to have different amounts. It's like, this one's 23 thousandths, they could go up to 30 or so. And so I was trying to find different information, and what I found from Ford was, basically I just made notes here to be able to rattle through this. So basically what they want is the gear to be able to sit on that support right there. That's like the gear boss, and it's a thrust surface similar to what your camshaft is doing. And what they want is basically I have the measurements there, but with the gear pressed against the block, you should still be able to lift the body 5 thousandths, so that basically if the block weren't there, it could still move up or down. You could get into debates about like performance, if it's better to sit high, like oil viscosity and so on. But basically the cam is going to want to, pull the gear kind of downward. So that's why that support's built in, or else it would just rip the shaft right out. But you still want that in between so that there's enough play when it's engaged. So it's something where, someone else was like, oh, don't worry about it. Obviously, iron gears are very forgiving compared to something like bronze or even steel. But if you're really concerned with doing it critical, I would probably follow what Ford says, because blocks are going to be different because that's a wear surface. So I have these old calipers I probably need to replace, but you know, this is only 4 and 23,000. Some people will be like, oh, I got 4 and 27 because it's a more worn out block. So I would do it that way and don't just leave it, because I called MSD and they're like, oh, we're only concerned with our spec. Obviously, because if something was wrong, they'll ask, oh, was it within range? But I would, you know what both companies want and go probably with Ford, because it's going to depend on your block, and you do want that gear to sit like that. I'm right at 5 thousandths where the body can lift, so I'm right within range, and I'm not going to play with it further because every time I use the press, it only seems to jump 10 thousandths, so I'm just going to leave it right there. So hopefully this is good to go.